Hello, another ZwoBot video here, and this time around, instead of looking at a particular ZwoBot module, I'm going to look at some examples of different ZwoBot signal chains that I've used in previous live shows, just to go over how some of the different modules can be combined to create some interesting effects. So this first one I'm going to look at is using 3 modules. And I've already connected them to the player here. So we've got this drift effect, the crunch effect, and this pattern visual generator. So what I'll do first is just go through them one by one. So first we've got this pattern. So if I just hit play, this generates visuals. So you can see I've got nothing in my player here. There's no video, no images, because everything that you'll see in here is being generated by this module. So for this particular signal chain, I don't need a base video or image because I'm getting the visuals from this. So as you can see, what this does is create some crazy pattern effects. I've set the BPM to be 1 note, and I've got some sound reactive stuff going on the modulation and shift settings. The color is changing with the beat sync settings, which are also set to 1 note over here. I'm not going to go into how each of these modules work. I'm going to do separate videos on that. This is just to show how they can work together. So that's the base visual that I'm using for this effect. And then on top of that, I've got this crunch effect. So if I turn that on, this kind of applies this shape on top of this, and you can see pattern is at the bottom in my signal chain. So I've laid it out here the same way as it is here, so it's easy to see what's going on. We've got the pattern visual generator on the bottom, the crunch on top of that, and then on top of that we've got this drift effect. So I've got some audio reactive settings on the size, which is quite nice. I've got that set to the low frequency. So what that means is that this shape is going to get bigger with the lower frequencies. Because there's quite a prominent kick drum in this track and bass, it kind of responds to that. So you can see it's kind of getting bigger with that kick, which works quite well with this particular track, I think. And then I've got this setting so that it's moving around, so that is also responding to the lower frequencies. You can see I've got that set to low, and the sensitivity here, I might want to dial the sensitivity in a little bit so that what I want is for it to move with the bass notes. So if I've got it down this, it's not responding to the kick at all now. But once that bass comes in, there we go, you can see it's starting to move around now. That's the second effect I've got on there, and then finally I've got this drift effect, which I really like, which kind of adds a bit of sort of distortion to it. So if I hit play, again I've got some sound reactive settings here, so these adjust and drift settings are going to respond. Again, I've got them set to the lower frequencies, and I've got the orientation, so that's basically, is it going to go horizontal or vertical, set to the beat sync, so that's going to change every beat just to add a bit of variety. And I've also got the blend mode set to difference. Let's just get the track going here. So you can see what that's doing here. It's just kind of a smooth image, whereas this drift effect is giving it that kind of distortion, which just gives it a bit more dirt. Now what we can also do is change this smooth setting, which smooths out some of the transitions, as you can see, as the shape is moving around. So you can play with that to your own tastes, and you could, manually change that as part of your performance. Now the final step to this is the kaleidoscope effect, because I think, that looks okay, but for me it's a bit too kind of all over the place. But if you turn the kaleidoscope on, it makes it nice and symmetrical, and it kind of contains it a bit more. I quite like it on 4 here. And what I did when I was using this effect during a live performance was change the kaleidoscope settings with the beat, so as that bass is coming in, you can have a change. And that's basically it, but you can play about, like I say, you can play about with the kaleidoscope effect, but there's lots of different things you can mess about with. You could change the blend mode on here, turn it off or change it to multiply, which makes the drift effect much more subtle. You can also change things like this sound reactive setting on the crunch size. If you want it to be bigger, you can turn this up, and now it's much more full on. Or if you want it to be a bit smaller and more contained, you can make that smaller. Might want to make it a little bit bigger. There we go. You could change the size of the pattern effect. You can make the pattern change more quickly by turning this BPM setting up, and it's a bit more mad. You could change the speed of the crunch movement to match the beat sync, and then you could turn that up. Oh, there we go. You can turn the trigger speeds here up. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you need to turn the trigger speed up to get the speed of this movement going. So this is now absolutely mental. Okay, let's bring that down. And you could change that during the performance, so I could have this down and then go, and then bring it down. That wasn't a good place. So to have it respond to the music, you could manually change that. And obviously you can just play about with all these blend settings as well. If you want to make any of the effect a bit more subtle, you can chuck a blend mode on it. There you go. Whoa. Just bring that down a bit. Pretty interesting. Now, yeah, I wouldn't want to use... Actually, it works sometimes. Some of these blend modes aren't going to, like that, it just does nothing because this is at the very bottom of the signal chain, so it's blending it with nothing because there's nothing underneath it. Some of them work okay though. If I put the feedback on here. So yeah, just using these three effects and playing about with the parameters, you can get a massive variety of stuff going on. Anyway, that's enough of that. So there's one example of a cool signal chain that you can have a lot of fun with, and I'll probably do a few of these, so I'll be back with another example of a different signal chain soon.